Hi guys, this is Vihang. Uh, Time for another of our conversations with Bhavin. Uh, as all of us know, Bhavin is a coach of international repute, and among many things that we talk here today, uh, we would love to speak about finding your purpose in life. And given Bhavin's exposure to holistic living, who better than him to guide us on this today? Hi, Bhavin. Welcome to the podcast.
Yes, thank you, Vihan. And I always look forward to having these conversations with you, conversations which end up as.
Bhavin, welcome to the podcast.
Yes, thank you, Vihan. And I always look forward to having these conversations with you, conversations which end up as podcasts for whoever chooses to enjoy them and chooses to benefit from them. Thank you so much. And yes, let's get going.
Yes, Bhavin. So the first thing on on most of our minds is, uh, you used to run a program some time back called the Power of Focus. And my belief is that in order to have focus, you should know first where to focus, and that where is basically the question that you need to ask yourself is what sort of overarching where to focus, and that where is basically the question that you need to ask yourself is what sort of overarching purpose should you devote yourself to, right? And so let's start with that question, Bhavin. What how do you get your purpose in life?
Yes, that's the thing one. And this is one question which a very big section of humanity is grappling with. And I remember one of our earlier conversations when you would often mention that if you can help people find their purpose, then that could be one of the greatest gifts you could ever give a human being. So we used to discuss this 3 years back, and I'm happy we are circling back and coming to that topic. So to answer your question, discussed this 3 years back, and I'm happy we are circling back and coming to that topic. So to answer your question, uh, would you want to elaborate your question a bit for me to do more justice to it?
Yeah, so so you were right. I think everything basically, all your actions, all your thoughts, basically emanate from this overarching desire to have some meaningful goal in life. Like Viktor Frankl in his book Man's Search for Meaning said, you can always figure out the how if you know the why. And the question all of us, including me, have at various points in time is how do you figure out the why? What is a good enough? And the question all of us, including me, have at various points in time is how do you figure out the why? What is a good enough why? How do you really focus into maybe a statement, or how do you really crystallize your goal? It could be the goals could be anything from maybe let's say making $1 million to let's say having an internet presence with 100,000 followers to writing a book to anything. But how do you really uh, get out at a get to a meaningful purpose? Yeah.
Yeah. That's the crux. And there's this one statement which I have been sharing with a lot of friends and students that's the
Purpose. Yeah.
yeah. That's the crux. And there's this one statement which I have been sharing with a lot of friends and students that what is that one thing you can do or you would do with your life, even if instead of people paying you, you would have to pay for it. What is that one thing that sort of creates such a deep fire in the belly that you don't require to be necessarily paid? I mean, forget the practical considerations, keeping the practical considerations of life aside, there's always some activity that each of us would do which is non-negotiable for us. And each of us would do which is non-negotiable for us. And that's where lies the answer. That's where lies the purpose.
So basically, what you're saying is you need to find that one activity which you are possibly good at, which you enjoy doing, and your purpose or your meaning lies somewhere around creating an ecosystem around that activity. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And what I'm also saying is that
Just to
your enthusiasm for the activity should be so much that it's you are serving the world through that activity, but just to make a point, you are also ready to pay the world to let you pursue that activity rather than wanting to receive. It's you are serving the world through that activity, but just to make a point, you are also ready to pay the world to let you pursue that activity rather than wanting to receive from the world. That's just to make the point, basically. Yes.
Oh wow. I used to think that your passion or your purpose is something that you would do for free. But you've taken that point further and you're now saying that you would be willing to pay the world, to allow you to do that activity.
Yes, that is simply to make a point, whereas in practical terms, I wouldn't advise that.
Obviously,
I
all of
would love
us,
for
yeah.
people to monetize their passion, but yes, just to make a point that that is the extent and intensity of your desire to pursue that. Yes.
Wow. So basically, just to give our listeners
Is their passion, but yes, just to make a point that that is the extent and intensity of your desire to pursue that. Yes.
Wow. So basically, just to give our listeners an example, you would basically maybe want to pay people to allow you to write a book. And if that's your passion, or if you would want to,
Yes.
it would be very funny, but you would
Yes.
pay people to gather in order to listen to you if you love speaking. Uh,
Yes.
yeah.
If you're ready to part with your money to do your activity, then that is enough proof of concept that you really love doing what you are choosing to do.
Would you love to give an example, Bhavin, a personal example possibly from your life, which
Yes.
helps crystallize this idea better?
Or love doing what you are choosing to do.
Would you love to give an example, Bhavin, a personal example possibly from your life, which
Yes.
helps crystallize this idea better?
Yes. So I love to, research on a lot of topics in detail on areas which concern human development in every possible way, whether it is around health or prosperity or relationships or generally being blissed out, being more spiritual, being enlightened, and all of these domains of human life which help us become a higher version of ourselves. So I choose to research it deeply enough and formulate and create trainings out of it and serve the world. And that allows me enough and formulate and create trainings out of it and serve the world. And that allows me, and I'm very clear I'm doing this primarily for myself and for my own fun. And in the process, a lot of people partake of it and benefit from it. So this is one thing I have fortunately learned how to monetize this passion of mine, so that the show can go on. But nevertheless, it is things like this that I won't mind even spending my own money to do because I enjoy doing these things.
Excellent. I think
Yes.
excellent. In my own personal life, if I may, that there are two things I can't decide which one is closer for me. But the two things that I would love to that there are two things I can't decide which one is closer for me. But the two things that I would love to pay people to allow me to do is one, thinking clearly, and the other would be to articulate those thoughts. So basically, I mean, I am a sort of a troubleshooter for many people, a problem solver, and they consider me. They sometimes consider paying me for it, but if they didn't, I would pay them for solving their problems.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes, that's precisely what I mean. Yes, so like your passion, it is as simple as that, I feel.
Wow,
Realize your passion. Yes, and then as we evolve, I feel this whole area around passion is ever evolving and dynamic aspect. So as we evolve,
wow,
realize your passion. Yes, and then as we evolve, I feel this whole area around passion is ever evolving and dynamic aspect. So as we evolve, we might find more passions, and as we become more enthusiastic about life, I think we might want to do more and more things with life. So it's not that a person needs to have a singular passion. He might have multiple passions, and he may choose to narrow down to a few for logistical reasons, because he has only so much energy and only so much time. But yes, one could have more than one passion, and one might be able to do justice, just like Leonardo da Vinci, who could do justice to so many passions. So multidimensional people might have multiple passions, but at the end of to so many passions. So multidimensional people might have multiple passions, but at the end of the day, the answer lies in what is what is pulling the strings of your heart from within, what is tugging at you from within, and there's the passion. Yes.
understood. So you spoke about evolution of passion, which I think brings me to the second point. How do you have a consistency of passion? Where I'm coming from is the overall purpose of this discussion about passion is, it helps you find a focus in your life. Um, so a corollary to that is that, your passion should be something consistent. I'm not saying that you find a focus in your life. Um, so a corollary to that is that, your passion should be something consistent. I'm not saying that there couldn't be a change. You could always refine it, or you could zoom in or zoom out. However, how do you have consistency in once you find your purpose? I think there is some value in not wavering too much, or in basically finding something which is really core to you and sticking to it for the rest of your life. Because I'm a huge believer in the power of compounding. The real success or the real outcome of your passion or your purpose will not come in year 1 or 2. It will come in year 9 or 10, right? And
Yes.
one necessity for that is you should remain with it for till the year 9 of your passion or your purpose will not come in year 1 or 2. It will come in year 9 or 10, right? And
Yes.
one necessity for that is you should remain with it for till the year 9 and 10. You know, most of
Yeah.
us uh, believe that something is very close to our hearts, and we put in enormous efforts for the first 6 months, and cut off that power of compounding to follow something else. So, what are your ideas about the consistency of your purpose or consistency of your passion, Bhavin?
Yes, that's very important question because, well, as we heard in our school times that a rolling stone gathers no moss, and if we are busy digging, if we dig 10 holes of 5 feet each, it takes us nowhere. But if we dig one hole of 50 feet, we might just touch water. So, and if we are busy digging, if we dig 10 holes of 5 feet each, it takes us nowhere. But if we dig one hole of 50 feet, we might just touch water. So obviously, we don't want to be a jumping jack who is moving around from one thing to another, and we do wish to be consistent. Now, I feel that the answer to this lies within our human makeup. I'll give you a brief background. Uh, there are two aspects to a human being. One is his consciousness, and one is his personality. His consciousness is what we call the Shiva Tattva, and his personality is what we call the Shakti Tattva. So consciousness is eternal. It is beyond your personal tendencies, beyond your personal Shakti Tattva. So consciousness is eternal. It is beyond your personal tendencies, beyond your personal wiring, beyond your talents, beyond who Vihang is. But the personality is Vihang and all his uniqueness and all his idiosyncrasies and all his strengths and everything that he is wired for. So the purpose of a human being lies in his personality and not in his consciousness. So, in order to have consistency of purpose, one should have a technology by virtue of which the passion that is locked within the personality opens up. And there are lots of modalities in the world of self-help opens up. And there are lots of modalities in the world of self-help, if not spirituality, because spirituality is a larger dimension, largely focused around the consciousness, but self-help or self-growth is an interrelated domain, which is largely about unlocking your deepest passion. So there are a lot of modalities in the world of self-help which help one unlock one's passion. And that is how one finds consistency, because once it is unlocked at a cellular level, there isn't much, there isn't enough space for distraction. There could yet be some distractions here and there, which are healthy distractions, which perhaps help you fine tune your purpose. But by and large, a person is so strongly driven by his passion that all distractions fall away, on the by lanes, and you keep running on the highway. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Interesting. Very interesting. So we heard about how do you find your purpose. We heard about the modalities where by we can make our purpose consistent. Let's now move on to how do you if others we heard about the modalities where by we can make our purpose consistent. Let's now move on to how do you if or and how can you monetize your passion? There are two parts to this question. The first part is, does passion have to be monetized? What are your thoughts on that? Some people say, you should just pursue your passion for the sake of it because it makes you happy. There's another school of thought which says you got to pay your rent, so better do something that makes, better make money from something that gives you meaning rather than, doing a day job. So that's question number one. And then second, how do you really monetize your passion? What are some of the practical ways where you could, monetize what you love to do?
Yes, so let's first perhaps comprehensively cover the first question, which is an important one. I used to be a part of that school which believes that a passion should be kept a passion and one shouldn't mingle money with the passion that corrupts the passion and that sort of dilutes it, and it no longer is fun enough because then you are sort of also involved in its practical considerations. For example, if I am playing a musical instrument, uh, and then if I want to start teaching that musical instrument to others and gaining money out of it, so now it is already become a job and I might not enjoy it so much, and then I have to start worrying about where will I get my students from, and then once I have my students, then I'm worried about how do I sustain them and all of that. And once the commerce enters passion, then passion is no longer so much fun. And well, all these points are valid. I wouldn't dispute that. But then there is this other side, that one approach that many people have is they have a day job and then they are left with only an hour or two a day to passion from, and then once I have my students, then I'm worried about how do I sustain them and all of that. And once the commerce enters passion, then passion is no longer so much fun. And well, all these points are valid. I wouldn't dispute that. But then there is this other side, that one approach that many people have is they have a day job and then they are left with only an hour or two a day to pursue their passion, maybe not even that. And then they choose that sort of a life so that the passion remains uncorrupted. But on the other hand, you have this other scenario wherein you're pursuing your passion all day, and though you have eaten into the beauty of the passion by introducing commerce into it, but yet you are pursuing it all. Though you have eaten into the beauty of the passion by introducing commerce into it, but yet you are pursuing it all day. And well, both of these are evils in a way. None of this is an ideal solution, perhaps, but the one which, the second one, which involves monetizing your passion, at least allows you to pursue it all the time. So, to my mind, that's a more pleasurable solution as well as a more practical solution. Monetizing your passion.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, so your answer to that question is definitely one should be monetizing his passion. One thing that we've observed, Bhavin, is let's, for example, believe that you love researching his passion. One thing that we've observed, Bhavin, is let's, for example, believe that you love researching various topics and that's your passion, right? And for monetizing it, you got to have have some clients who are interested in the knowledge that you have gathered by way of your research. and let's say you charge them to coach them for this. That's a way of monetizing your passion, which you're doing beautifully. However, to do justice to the entire process, you also need to have a lot of peripheral activities. For example, the marketing part of it, the strategy part of it, the admin part, the and the sales part of it, and I'm sure to have a lot of peripheral activities. For example, the marketing part of it, the strategy part of it, the admin part, the and the sales part of it, and I'm sure not all of us are passionate about all of these peripheral activities. For example, I know that you hate the selling and marketing part of it. How do you really cope up with these peripherals, which are very important if you want to monetize and live your passion, but which are not really the most inviting things for your persona?
Yeah, yes, that's one struggle that I lived with when I, chose to jump from my family business into something like this. I began.
For your persona.
Yeah, yes, that's one struggle that I lived with when I, chose to jump from my family business into something like this. I began with this wonderful dream of following my passion all the while, but as I became more conversant with what I was doing, I realized that there are a lot of other not so interesting things that just come with the territory, and that itself is my solution. I have come to accept this, that it just goes with the territory and it is a package deal and you can't help it. Well, I mean, we all want to be healthy, but then sickness goes with it. Or if you look at prosperity, then there is seasonality in it. There are times to be healthy, but then sickness goes with it. Or if you look at prosperity, then there is seasonality in it. There are times when you have lots of money coming in, and there are times when you're losing money also. Or you look at relationships, again, the duality is very much a part of it. So, on this earth plane, unlike the heavenly realms, or on this human planet, duality is a part and parcel of it. So the way I navigate through these not so interesting aspects around my passion is that I tell myself that this just goes with the territory, and if I want one, then I have to live with another. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Bhavin, what are your thoughts about outsourcing the peripherals? If I sometimes wonder whether uh, you know you should possibly handle the core, the passion part of your of the overall endeavor, and possibly employ someone or possibly partner with someone who is passionate about something that you struggle with. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that seems to be the ideal solution, and that is something that I have to perhaps learn and internalize yet more. But that can surely.
Something that you struggle with. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that seems to be the ideal solution, and that is something that I have to perhaps learn and internalize yet more. But that can surely help you do away with a lot of the your own subjective non-essentials, and then that is a matter of passion of somebody else. So it was them also. Just that, in spite of having that team around you where others are doing things they are passionate about and which you are not passionate about, well, there will always be some of the other elements having to deal with that person. and having to be aware of the overall angles. So while you can minimize the things to be aware of the overall angles. So while you can minimize the things which you are less passionate about, you can't necessarily neutralize it altogether. Yes.
Right, great. So, any other thoughts, Bhavin, on this topic before I summarize and conclude the podcast?
Well, I'll just perhaps maybe it is for some other podcast in greater detail, but since you asked another interesting question, that how does one go about monetizing one's passion, I think I'll just share my views in short around it. I feel that money is the byproduct of offering your highest version to the world with love and joy. So as long as offering your highest version to the world with love and joy. So as long as that is in place, as long as your core value is in place, that you're here for a value exchange and here you are here to make a difference to the world through your deepest gifts with all the love and joy, then money is going to flow in the current economy. As you must be observing, there are all types of professions. The other day you were only mentioning to me that you know about somebody who who's a dog trainer. I mean, 20 years before we could have never even thought of this sort of possibility in terms of earning your bread, but we could have never even thought of this sort of possibility in terms of earning your bread. But in today's world, the possibilities are only enhancing. We are moving into the golden age, and we could have a very small micro niche as our talent, but we will always find buyers for that. So monetizing our passion is becoming easier and easier as we are evolving industrially and technologically.
Wow, excellent.
Yes.
Super. So let me just summarize this. In Crux, we discussed 4 points broadly. First was how to find your passion, for which I think the single most important point was to ask yourself a question: what will you pay to find your passion? For which I think the single most important point was to ask yourself a question: what will you pay people for doing, instead of charging them for doing? So that kind of clarifies a lot of things, that takes the money out of the equation, and it doesn't pollute the question with money. So that's a good point. Second thing we discussed is consistency of passion. You mentioned about consciousness and a personality, and that there are many technologies available to find out what really is core for your personality. The third point is monetization, and this was where all of this this is where all of this fits into our effortless prosperity theme. The third point is monetization, and this was where all of this this is where all of this fits into our effortless prosperity theme. What we concluded was monetization is a very good idea for your passion, because it helps you spend your time the most meaningfully and with the least amount of suffering. And the fourth was peripherals. How do you deal with things that you don't like while pursuing your passion? And the thought was that you possibly the best way to do that is to partner with people who are passionate about something that you are not so passionate. And also possibly a thought was that you possibly the best way to do that is to partner with people who are passionate about something that you are not so passionate. And also possibly another thing is that you have to live with those things which you don't really like as a sacrifice to doing something that you love. Overall, if you think about people who have achieved the highest amount of prosperity in the world currently, most of these people have confessed that they were deeply passionate about what they were doing. Many of them did not actually start about with the idea of becoming a millionaire or a billionaire. They just started out doing it because they loved doing it. However, many of them did not actually start about with the idea of becoming a millionaire or a billionaire. They just started out doing it because they loved doing it. However, call it luck or call it their strategy, they ended up monetizing their passions in such a beautiful way that they created movements out of those. A few names that come to the top of my mind are Warren Buffett. He said that every day he goes tap dancing to his work. He lives very modestly, so most of the money that he's made, is not spent on his lifestyle, which kind of goes to say that money was not the primary motivation. The primary motivation was pursuit of his passion. The second is Bill Gates. Similar made, is not spent on his lifestyle, which kind of goes to say that money was not the primary motivation. The primary motivation was pursuit of his passion. The second is Bill Gates. Similar story. Third is Mark Zuckerberg. Another idea which was not meant to really enrich the inventor, but mostly started off as a passion. So all of this kind of gives us hope that people like us who have clarity about their passion and who are clear about these 4 or 5 points that we discussed today, could find meaning at the same time, achieve effortless prosperity, by following these 4 or 5 points that we discussed. Right, Bhavin?
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yes.
Could find meaning at the same time, achieve effortless prosperity, by following these 4 or 5 points that we discussed. Right, Bhavin?
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yes. You have done great justice to the entire conversation by putting the 4 points in a nutshell. And to top that, you gave some very, very relevant examples. And most of these examples come from people who have been there, done that, and they have been the highest versions of themselves. And we can see them across all domains of life. Even a Mahatma Gandhi, or even all the great spiritual masters, or anybody from the social domain, the socio-political domains, wherever you are, even all the great spiritual masters, or anybody from the social domain, the socio-political domains, wherever you've made it big because there has been a singularity of purpose. And I'm very happy we spoke about this topic of singularity of purpose because it is such a prerequisite to this entire arena of effortless prosperity. So thanks for having me over, Vihang, and yes, bye until next time.
Thank you, Bhavin. Thank you, guys. Ciao. Bye.
Bye, 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 everyone. Time.
Thank you, Bhavin. Thank you, guys. Ciao. Bye.
Bye, 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 everyone.